Welcome to the Talent Development Hot Seat. I'm your host, Andy Storch, and I'm excited that you are joining me today for a very special episode celebrating episode number 600 of the Talent Development Hot Seat podcast. That's right. I started this podcast many years ago, back in May of 2018, with no idea of where it might go. I didn't know if anybody would listen. I didn't really know if it would last. I didn't even know if guests from the corporate world would be willing to talk with me, because at that time, most podcasts I listened to and was aware of were interviewing people who were entrepreneurs, running a business, or in corporate communications, about investing, things like that. I didn't see too many podcasts about HR, talent development, particularly interviewing those leaders in the organizations who were doing it. And I definitely didn't imagine that not only would I start this podcast, but it would turn into so many things like a conference, a community, and would lead to 600 episodes, nearly all of them conversations with some of the smartest, most generous leaders in talent development. I didn't break down, or I didn't look at the exact breakdown, but in 7 years of running this podcast, this is episode number 600. I would guess less than 10% of those had been solo episodes where it's just me. I have done some of those, like this one today, but I think it's less than 10%, which means the rest were interviews and conversations with really bright, impressive, mostly talent leaders, practitioners doing the job inside businesses. I would guess that's about 60 to 70%. And then, of course, if you've listened for a while, you know I've also had many experts, gurus, authors, speakers like myself on the show as well to share their insights and what they're seeing, what they're doing, what they're providing. I've also had some sponsors of the podcast over the years, and I've invited them to join me so I can support them and the work they're doing as they are supporting me with my podcast, with this journey. So it's been 600 episodes. Here we are. And whether you've been listening since episode number 1, and if you have, that is absolutely incredible, because you probably had no idea who I was back then, or this is your first time joining, which is quite possible as well. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening, for supporting, for your encouragement, for your feedback, for your shares, your messages, your posts on LinkedIn, and for being part of this journey to elevate the world of learning and development. You know, when I started this podcast, there wasn't much else out there in the world of talent development, learning and development. And today, there are many, many, many other podcasts about learning and development, talent development for some really talented people, many of whom I've gotten to know and become friends. And so there's lots of great options out there. I appreciate that a lot of people still tune into this podcast to hear the interviews, the conversations, the insights that I'm sharing. And I will be sharing some insights with you today. This is not just a gratitude celebration episode, but I want to use it to share some insights as well. Before I do, I want to thank all of the incredible guests who have come on this show. Way too many to name. As I mentioned, 600 episodes, probably 550 have been conversations. There have been many repeats. For quite a while, I was doing 2-part episodes where I would interview a guest about a topic and then do a bonus Q&A where we would dig into some of their greatest accomplishments, failures, trends they're seeing, books they're reading, etc. So there are probably 300 guests or so that, well, not 300 guests, maybe 150 guests that were on at least twice or had 2 of those episodes. So I didn't go back to look at the exact numbers, but I'm guessing we've had 400 different guest interviews on this show, at least over the last 7 years. And so many great people, a few repeat guests. I may mention a couple of them here, and just many, many individual contributors, many chief learning officers, talent officers, senior talent leaders, as well as I mentioned, gurus, experts, etc. I want to thank every one of them for coming on the show and having faith in me. And I also want to thank our sponsors over the years. The main one that got us started was Advantage Performance Group, or APG. President John Hodge was supportive of me from day one and said, if you want to start this show, we'll support it, and helped fund the beginning of the podcast and sponsor this podcast for, I think, the first 3 years of the show. And if you're not familiar with Advantage, they are a great partner to go to for any type of learning programs, especially experiential learning programs in areas like business acumen, leadership development, strategic alignment, decision-making, etc. And you can find more information about them by going to advantageperformance.com. John Hodge is the president. We've had him on in the last year talking about the ethical uses of AI. And I've had some other Advantage partners on over the years. Learn It has been our big sponsor for the last year. Damon Lemby is the CEO, and he's been very supportive of this show and my mission and the work that I've been doing. And we've had some other shorter stint sponsors over the years, and I'm really appreciative of everybody who has come out and supported the show, as well as, of course, our guests and you, our listeners, and everyone else. I also want to thank support staff too, because I've mentioned this, in the past. I know my strengths around interviewing, speaking with people, keynote speaking, facilitating, connecting people, things like that. And I know my weaknesses, and one of them is details. I'm not very detail oriented. I'm not good at managing projects. I'm not always that good with the tech stuff. And I've been very lucky to have some great support staff helping me with the podcast over the years. I will say the first 2 years or so, I did a lot of it myself. I did some of my own editing, producing of the show. And so I know how to do those things. But we've had some different producers over the years. But the last 4 or 5 years, Finn Gentle has been our editor-producer. He's done a fantastic job of making this podcast sound great. No matter how I sound, he makes the podcast sound great, makes our guests sound great. And then Stephanie Hutchison was my assistant and operations manager for 4 years. The first 4 years of the show helped me coordinate everything, make everything run. And now I'm lucky to still have some great virtual assistants who coordinate the episodes and get our blog up on our website, as well as notifying guests, putting materials together to post on social and things like that. So I want to recognize that I don't do this alone because I can't. Things will fall apart because I'm not detail oriented. But it's been an incredible journey, 7 years, and it's not just a celebration. I want to make this, like I said, valuable for you, the listener, if you're tuning in to hear, okay, what did you get out of 600 episodes? And there were lots of themes. I didn't go back and look at all 600 episodes because that is a lot. But what I did, especially because things are changing so much, is I went and looked at the last 50 to 100 episodes, especially with a lot of the talent leaders who were inside organizations, to see what they were talking about, what their accomplishments were, what challenges they were wrestling with, what trends are they looking at, and what themes are coming out, what signals have become clear. So today I'm going to share the 8 biggest insights that have consistently come up over the last couple of years, at least, with every talent leader, HR partner, executive, employee needs to understand these. And I'll share a few powerful quotes from guests along the way. So let's dive in. Insight number 1, learning culture is the strategic foundation. If there's one theme that has come up again and again, it's this. Learning culture isn't a program. It's the operating system of a high-performing organization. It's not about creating more courses or pushing more content. Those things can be helpful. They can be important. I mean, we need programs. We need content. People need ways, methods, platforms to learn. But it's also really important to create an environment where curiosity is encouraged, where learning is visible, and where people feel safe to experiment, fail, and grow. This speaks to one of my favorite topics, something I'm really passionate about, which is the idea of fostering a learning culture and a growth mindset. Growth mindset really being about the idea that we can always learn, we can always grow, we can always improve, and therefore we should be willing to try different things even if we might fail, because that's where we learn the most. And the problem is when organizations do not foster this mindset. In fact, they punish failure. They demand perfection and punish failure. Then people are not willing to take risks and they are not willing to experiment. And then, of course, you don't get a learning culture. You get a stagnant culture, which is not good. The best organizations have learning woven into the workflow. Of course, we've all heard of learning in the flow of work. Leaders who role model growth. I mean, you really, really have to have the leaders involved. If everything is just driven by L&D, HR, talent development, et cetera, like that's great. But if leaders are not on board, I'm talking about all the way up to the executive level, and they're not saying things like learning is important. We all need to attend these workshops. I'm going to jump in when I can. How can I support this? Then you're probably in trouble. You also want a culture where curiosity is celebrated. As I mentioned, if people are going to be punished for asking questions or taking risks, they're not going to do those things, right? But I strongly believe that as the world is changing more and faster, curiosity is the number one most valuable skill in any type of function or work, no matter what you do. Curiosity is really, really valuable. And so we want to celebrate curiosity and not punish experimentation, like I said. And you also want to create a culture where people feel invited to learn, where it's celebrated to learn, that it's not just, oh, you've been selected to go to this learning program, but it's an honor to get to do that the company makes time for learning. I see lots of great organizations blocking off days or weeks, or even having I've spoken in this year in Learning Week, in Career Week, in Grow Your Career Month, where there's stuff going on throughout the month to encourage people to learn and grow in their careers. I pulled out a couple quotes from the last few episodes that I thought would be insightful here. One is from Fabio Sacamon, who said, "It's not about pushing more content. It's about intentionally designing moments where people are pulled into the experience." And then one from Dr. Keith Keating, who wrote The Trusted Learning Advisor and more recently Hidden Value. Make sure you check those books out as well as the episodes. I've had Keith on the podcast 3 times. He said, a learning culture is a hidden network that powers everything. You often don't notice it until it's missing. Think about that. You often don't notice it until it's missing. So it's one of those things that we often take for granted, but if it's not there, then we start to notice that, oh, people don't care that much about learning and we're going to be falling behind. The organizations that win in the future are the ones creating cultures where learning is not an event, it's a habit. Get that? Where learning is not an event, it's a habit. So we want this thing to be really ingrained in the culture. I know I'm preaching to the choir on this. All of you believe so much in the power of learning. You're lifelong learners, but that's not enough. We do need to create a culture of learning in our organizations where it's encouraged and even celebrated to take time for learning on a regular basis. And I'm actually, in my first book, Own Your Career, Own Your Life, I wrote a chapter about the importance of lifelong learning, or investing in continuous learning is what I called it. I still speak about that in every keynote. I've been doing keynotes more about how to set yourself up for future success. And one of the keys to that, I say, is investing in continuous learning. And in fact, I'm working on the outline and idea for a new book about owning your career in the age of AI. And I think one of the most important aspects of that is the idea of investing in continuous learning or fostering continuous learning for yourself, for your team, for your organization, etc., because things are changing so fast. So insight number 1 is learning culture is the strategic foundation. By the way, at the end of this, I will give you a place to go to download these if you're not in a place where you can take notes. Insight number 2, leadership must be human, authentic, and vulnerable. This is a really interesting one. Again, I think it's something where you all might nod your heads, but also have to ask, like, is this really happening in your organization? This is probably the most human theme of the insights I'll share, because leadership is changing. I've written most of another book about leadership, what I call modern leadership, and done some programs and sessions on it, because I think leadership is really changing from the hierarchical ways of the past to what people truly want from leaders in today's world and in the future, which is they want that human connection. Today's employees don't want leaders who are robotic, polished, or pretending to have it all figured out, have all the answers. They want leaders who are authentic, empathetic, and real. I've seen this over and over in conversations with employees. I've seen it in talking with talent development leaders like you. And, I made a list here of what people want from leaders. They want leaders who listen before they speak, who show vulnerability and authenticity, who coach instead of command, who admit when they're learning, who create psychological safety, and build trust through transparency. We also want leaders who are providing coaching and guidance, who challenge us, who provide accountability, who help us grow and get better. Really, what I believe about leadership is that it's all about empowering people to succeed both in their job today and their career long term. Couple quotes from you here. One is from Case Thomas, who is Vice President of Learning at Seagate Technologies. He said, "We see a shift from leaders needing to have all the answers to those who are comfortable being vulnerable and real." And that is such a huge, huge shift when leaders can feel comfortable, put their ego aside, and be vulnerable and real, and know that that's actually empowering and enabling people to succeed. Another one is from Frank Kellenberg, who is VP and Global Head of Culture and Inclusion at Sandoz, and a friend that I made at an HR conference last year. He said, "Employees want their leaders to be human." That pretty much sums up what I've heard from so many people when I ask, what do you want from your leaders? And one of my favorite quotes is from Ash Panjwani from Procore. Actually, one of my favorite quotes, one of my favorite interviews from the last few years was with Ash Panjwani. And she said, "Modern leadership means you're more of a coach than a commander." And I could not agree more. In my own studies of what modern leadership looks like, it is definitely about being more of a coach than a commander. It's a shift toward human-centered leadership. And it's not soft, it's strategic. By the way, when you're making that shift from commander to coach, it's important, of course, to show people how to be a good coach, to teach people how to coach, because unfortunately, so many people are promoted into manager roles, leadership roles, and they're not given the tools, the guidance, the training, the learning on how to be a good manager, how to be a good leader, how to be a good coach. And they often just learn from the managers they've had, for better or worse. And side note on that, if you are looking to create more of a coaching culture, I have recently completed a certification program on something called the Respect Coaching Styles, which is research-backed, award-winning process created by Dr. David Morelli, who I will be having on the podcast very soon in the next few weeks to talk about the Respect Coaching Styles. That's the idea that we give people options, different types of questions that they can ask, different styles to flex to make the coaching conversation even more effective. I have found for my own coaching, it helps me become a better coach. And I love bringing this to organizations to help leaders become better coaches as well. So if you are in a position where you are wanting your leaders to become better coaches, and I can't imagine how that cannot be the case, and you want some help with that, reach out to me for help with any of these things, but especially this idea of creating more of a coaching culture and leaders using different styles to coach. My email is andy@andystorch.com. Okay, so second insight is leadership must be human, authentic, and vulnerable. The third insight is career ownership and talent mobility are now the norm. This is what all organizations, well, not all, but most organizations are telling me now, that we want our people to own their careers, that the career ladder, as it has been known in the past, is changing, that we're living in an era of career ownership, and this has been a massive trend across recent episodes. Now, I will admit, when I look back, this looks like a big trend. There's definitely a huge amount of bias here because, as you all know, I am very big on this idea of career ownership. I wrote the book on it called Own Your Career, Own Your Life, which I published 5 years ago in November 2020, Own Your Career, Own Your Life. Highly recommend it. All of my advice on how to take ownership of your careers, and I speak in organizations often about this. But I get invited often to speak in organizations because I get on calls with people in talent development and I ask them what's going on for career development, and they say, we want our people to own their careers. We want our people to drive their careers with assistance from their manager in the organizations. But we really want our employees to understand that they have to own their careers if they want to be successful. And at the same time, these companies are also enabling more mobility through talent marketplaces, stretch assignments, internal gigs, cross-functional experiences, etc. And they're telling me things like, the career, the hierarchy is becoming flatter. The career ladder is dying. There aren't as many promotions available. We want people to be thinking about careers more like a rock climbing wall and, make more lateral moves, to be thinking about getting creative with growing in different ways. And this is where that ownership really becomes important because careers today are rock climbing walls. They're full of sideways, diagonal, and unexpected moves. And really, things are changing so much, we can't really predict the future, what it's going to look like in 5 or 10 years. So we've got to be willing to be creative. Ty Beasley from RSM told me career growth is no longer a straight ladder. In fact, many people have told me that. Amy Tiffin from Mercedes-Benz USA, who, by the way, was our episode number 1 back in 2018. She came back on the podcast this last year. She said, we're teaching people to own their careers and helping them see opportunities internally before they look somewhere else. This is such a big key, and why we want people to take ownership of their careers, to be more proactive, especially in a large organization, because if they're feeling a little bit stagnant, they're not sure where their career is going, you want them to be proactive and have a conversation with their manager and utilize the resources you have available inside an organization. Otherwise, they start looking outside, going on LinkedIn, taking calls from recruiters. And, the war for talent is real. I know it's a tough market for a lot of people, but organizations are still saying they want to hold on to and hire top talent. And if you're in a large organization, let's say, 5,000 plus employees, there's so many opportunities there. There's very little reason often for people to leave. So you want to make sure that they are taking ownership, they're getting clarity, they're being proactive in having conversations with their managers. And this is something I can definitely help with. Again, I speak inside organizations often about owning your career, about preparing for the future, about developing that ownership mindset. And of course, I'd love to talk with you about speaking in your organization as well. So feel free to reach out. Again, Andy at andystorch.com. My website is andystorch.com. We also had a powerful reminder from Fabio Sacamon. We also had a powerful reminder from Fabio Sacamon, who is VP of Learning and Development at Expedia Group. He said, if you develop your people well, of course other teams will want them. That's a sign of success. So, yes, we want people to own their careers. Yes, there's a risk that they may, look for other opportunities. But, it goes back to the old adage that I think you all know, right, from the CFO, what if we develop our people and they leave? And the CEO saying, well, what if we don't develop them and they stay, right? We want to develop our people, but we want them to take the lead in that, to truly own their career, their development, and their future. Career ownership and internal mobility are essential for retaining and engaging people in today's workplace. So that's insight 3. Career ownership and talent mobility are now the norm. Okay, insight number 4. L&D must become data-driven and evidence-based. This is about measurement, but it's no longer optional. I think in the past, measurement has come up periodically when I've been interviewing talent experts on the show or talent leaders, but it's coming up more and more because executives want to know, did learning improve performance? Did onboarding accelerate productivity? Did leadership training improve engagement? Did career programs improve retention? How is learning impacting our KPIs, our goals, our strategic objectives? And if you're not connecting with those, you're missing out on a big opportunity. And of course, you want to go take a look at, this is an area where we've talked a lot on this podcast. I would point you to episode with Jess Almley, as well as her new book called L&D Order Taker No More. I would point you to our episodes with Dr. Keith Keating, who wrote the Trusted Learning Advisor, as well as Hidden Value, that is all about helping L&D leaders elevate to becoming strategic partners. We've done a few more episodes on that over the years. And some quotes I pulled out from some recent episodes. Janina Norton from AXA, which is a French financial services conglomerate. She said, we have to move from a listening strategy to a listening and action strategy. She was talking about managing engagement survey results, that it's not just enough to do the survey, but we've got to connect them back to our strategic objectives and take some actual action listening to feedback. Jig Ramji, who was on the podcast recently, talked about using data in talent development. He said, if we want a seat at the table, we need to show business impact through data, not just stories. And I think both are important. Stories are really important. You really do need to know your audience, of course, but we need to be more comfortable with data because it's more readily available and really more expected these days. And Danielle Clark, who's head of talent at eBay, had on recently, she reminded us of this when she said, measuring what matters turns L&D into a business driver, not just an order taker or a training organization or a cost center, right? So it's a good reminder to connect back to the strategic objectives, the goals, the KPIs that matter. If you haven't been doing this, find yourself a mentor in the organization. Ask the CFO or someone in finance to have a conversation with you about what the strategic objectives are. Talk to your HR business partner and start to connect the work that you're doing back to where the business is going, what the business wants to achieve, and work on framing yourself as a strategic business partner. Again, I mentioned some books you could dig into. Jess Omley, L&D Order Taker No More, Dr. Keith Keating, who wrote The Trusted Learning Advisor and Hidden Value. They have all been on the podcast multiple times. We've also had some other episodes on this as well. The future belongs to L&D teams that connect learning outcomes directly to business outcomes, and I definitely agree with that. Insight number 5, onboarding and employee experience are strategic levers. This is interesting. We've done a few episodes over the years about onboarding. I primarily was doing that because almost every big organization has some type of onboarding program, right? But it's not just about making people feel comfortable. There's really a lot of strategic context to this. Onboarding is no longer a tactical HR process. It's a strategic differentiator. And I made a list here, or actually I leveraged AI to summarize some of these episodes, of course, and I'll do a whole other episode maybe about how I'm leveraging AI now in my podcast and the work that I do. It's been incredibly, incredibly helpful. But it says great onboarding improves retention, builds belonging, gets people productive faster, reduces early turnover, shapes culture immediately, and really helps people feel more comfortable and excited inside an organization. I had my friend Corey Sanford on, who runs talent development and HR at Guidant Financial. He said, good onboarding is our best recruitment insurance. And that's really powerful, right? If you do great onboarding, then people are probably going to stay longer and have a more favorable opinion of the organization. And back to Amy Tiffin from Mercedes-Benz USA, she said, we increased new hire satisfaction from 75% to 95%, by improving onboarding and getting people connected, which really, really matters. Getting people connected early really matters. We did a whole episode recently, actually 2 episodes I recall, I didn't write them down here, but 2 episodes I recall recently about onboarding if you're interested in that topic. One is with my friend Emma Strong, who's been a longtime member of our talent development think tank community. She has put together a really great onboarding program and measured the impact of that at her organization, Veritex. And that came out about a year ago, episode number 458, called Reimagining Remote Onboarding with Emma Strong. And then also check out the episode I did with Lizzie Kaiser, who is Director of Learning Development at Johnson Controls, because she oversaw the revamping of their massive, massive onboarding program. Their organization has thousands and thousands of employees and has measured the impact of that as well and seen some really, really big results. So go check that out as well. That was episode number 584. Transforming Onboarding and Upskilling at Johnson Controls with Lizzie Kaiser. So not that long ago, just 16 episodes back. So go check that out. So that's insight number 5, onboarding and employee experience are strategic levers. Insight number 6, AI and skills-based organizations are reshaping everything. This one is no surprise. When I go to conferences, when I talk to people, I join summits, forums, etc., I'd say the 2 biggest trends that I'm hearing about all the time are AI and skills-based organizations. That doesn't mean that everybody is doing it or they have things figured out, but they're still the 2 hottest topics, I think, for probably 2024 and 2025. The big one here, of course, is AI. Almost every recent guest I've had has talked about the rise of AI and the shift towards skills-based talent development. And many of them are telling me already that AI is transforming learning pathways, personalized coaching, skills intelligence, career mobility, leadership development, content creation, workflow automation, and so much more. And organizations are increasingly focused on capabilities, not just job titles, right? This is the move towards more of the skills-based organization. So many companies telling me we're moving towards skills-based, we're evaluating the skills, we want to focus more on capabilities, not just job titles. One of the best episodes I had, interviews I did, if you're looking for some ideas about where these things are going, was with my friend Charlotte Evans from Coursera, who has also sponsored our conference the last 2 years. She said, if you're not learning AI tools, you're already behind. And it sounds, comes on strong, but it is probably true. It's a reason why I've been playing with AI a lot lately, and I have been really finding it fun and helpful. I know there's some cynical talk out there about how, everybody's just using AI because of FOMO, but it's not actually helping them. Well, I have found AI very helpful in the work that I'm doing. I know a lot of organizations are leveraging AI. Back to Dr. Keith Keating, who wrote Hidden Value. He said, Back to Dr. Keith Keating, who is the CLO of back to Dr. Keith Keating, who is the Chief Learning Officer of BDO Canada and who wrote Trusted Learning Advisor and Hidden Value. He said, what differentiates us now is not what we know, but how we use tools and learning to create value. AI isn't replacing L&D, it's elevating it. So think about that. I don't have a lot more insights for you here about different ways to use AI. I think that's a whole nother episode, but it's important for us to mention that as one of the insights that is coming up a lot. In fact, in the last probably 50 to 100 episodes, AI has come up on almost every episode. Of course, it's something I almost always ask about because everyone's curious, how are others using AI in their organizations? So that's insight number 6. AI and skills-based organizations are shaping everything. If you're looking for more about skills-based, if you're looking for insights on creating a skills-based organization, I'll point you to a few episodes that you can check out. One is episode 593, Bridging the Skills Gap, Coaching, Mentoring, and AI and Talent Development with Jamie Alpers, who is co-founder of Mento, which has been a sponsor of this show. The next is episode 587, Closing Skills Gaps for the Future, Insights from Artem Ivanenko at InDrive. And I met Artem at the HR World Summit, and he shared a lot of great insights with me on how they're thinking about the skills gap in their global organization. Episode number 568, The Rise of Gen AI, Skills Leaders Need in 2025. This was with Charlotte Evans from Coursera. I published a couple episodes in a row with Charlotte, and this one is actually a recording of her keynote from the Talent Development Think Tank conference that I hosted in November of 2024. Looking further back, episode 476, Mastering Valuable Future Skills, Insights on Key Competencies for Success with yours truly, Andy Storch. I did an episode about skills and curiosity. And then one more episode, number 395, Creating a Skills-Based Workforce Strategy Using People Analytics with Dr. Serena Huang, which is a few years back. So there's a few episodes for you about skills. You can also go to our Talent Development Hot Seat website, talentdevelopmenthotseat.com, and type skills in the search bar or any other term you're looking for and find some of the episodes we've done on that. Okay, insight number 7. Insight number 7, human skills, inclusion, and well-being are competitive advantages. The more technology and automation we use, the more important human skills become. This is something that I am convinced of. I've been banging the drum on a lot lately. In my new book, Own Your Brand, Own Your Career, which I wrote with my friend Mike Kim, and we had an episode on this podcast about it. We have a chapter on the 7 human traits that are going to be increasingly valuable in the age of AI. And I do believe that as technology does more and more, human skills become more and more valuable. Human skills like empathy, critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, storytelling, adaptability, etc. And these are skills that companies can't really automate, right? Right now, as we're coming up on the end of 2025, we're in a place where AI can replace a lot of tasks, but it can't yet replace humans. Eventually, we'll get to a place where it will replace humans in full jobs, but it still won't replace that empathy, that relationship building, the communication, the collaboration that humans thrive on. And I pulled a couple quotes to support this one. One's from Artem Ivanenko from InDrive. He said, as automation rises, human skills become more valuable. Janina Norton from AXA said, inclusion isn't an add-on, it's the operating system for culture. And Ty Beasley from RSM said, you can't get someone's best work if you don't nurture the whole person. So this is not just about fostering human skills, but also about fostering well-being. We're seeing a bit of a burnout epidemic, so making sure that people are taken care of, they feel valued, they feel included, they feel like they belong, and they feel motivated, they feel connected to a purpose. And there are well-being initiatives available to them, so they feel like you care about their health as well. Organizations that foster well-being and belonging will always outperform those that don't, I believe. So that's insight 7, human skills, inclusion, and well-being. Insight number 8, L&D must be agile and do more with less. I know you all know this because you're seeing it, you're living it. But this has been a reality for so many L&D leaders. Teams are shrinking, budgets are tightening, expectations are rising as all of these things are happening at the same time. And I know all of you are feeling it. The best L&D teams, according to the interviews I've done, are being scrappy, are curating instead of building everything, are leveraging partners when they can, are reusing and repacking what works, are leveraging AI to find efficiencies, to summarize things, to get ideas, to create things with less resources, and are staying aligned closely with the business. So coming back to those business objectives, those KPIs, what the business cares about, and focusing on being a strategic partner and not just an order taker. And then realizing that, may not have the resources or the skills or ability to create everything internally, and looking at external partners. I did an interview with my friend Kelsey Kelly. From Point B, and she talked about this being a small, scrappy team with very limited resources, realizing they can't create it all. And they've been leveraging some outside partners, most notably Learn It, the organization I mentioned, which has sponsored our podcast for the last year. Damon Limby is the CEO and has been our guest on this show a couple times. She said, we're a small team supporting a big organization. Creativity and outside partners are essential. So don't forget about that. I'm obviously biased being an outside partner myself, but outside partners can come in and make a big impact. And even though sometimes the budget seems, quote, expensive, it's often less than hiring full-time staff to do all the things that you want to do. And I think it seems like this is where a lot of the industry is going, because I've seen so many people who were practitioners in the years past now out there as independent consultants, coaches, advisors, etc., and still getting a lot of work as contractors because organizations are not providing budget for full-time staff, but they're hiring a lot of contractors to do a lot of work that's going on. So again, this is where it's valuable to be scrappy, to leverage partners, reuse what you can. Case Thomas from Seagate Technology said, when resources shrink, you double down on fundamentals. So really paying attention to what are the most important things. And this now becomes the era of strategic, agile, business-aligned learning. So coming back to those business objectives and KPIs that are really important. Okay, so those are the 8 trends that I pulled out from the last 50 plus episodes, and really even looking further back at what are the big topics that we've covered in the last couple of years. Again, didn't look at all 600 because things have been changing so much. There are a lot of fundamentals that remain, like creating a learning culture, developing leaders, onboarding, etc. But a lot of things have been shifting as well, like skills-based organizations and AI. So let's talk about future trends. What is ahead for 2026 and beyond? I want to share one more thing that came up again in my recent conversations, and that's the future. So where is talent development heading? What should leaders, HR teams, and organizations be preparing for? What will define the next era of learning and work? So let's look at some of the most recent episodes and break it down. Number 1, AI-infused talent development and skills marketplaces. So as we know, AI is not coming. AI is here. We're only a couple of years in, but it's fully ingrained in so many businesses. Lots of companies telling me that their top priority is getting more people up and using AI, being more AI ready. By the way, I do have a solution for that as well. I have a partnership with an organization with a really cool AI academy to help your people shift their mindset, understand how to use AI better, for leaders to use AI better. So reach out to me if you are looking for help with AI adoption and readiness. But this is showing up in personalized learning journeys, adaptive content, AI-powered coaching, skills intelligence, talent mobility recommendations, micro-learning, content creation, and so much more. Organizations are moving more and more towards skills-based and AI-powered solutions. And Charlotte Evans put it best. She said, skills-based organizations powered by AI aren't a distant vision. They are here now. Personalized learning is the future. So organizations that embrace AI will move faster, personalize better, and empower employees to move more effectively. All right, so that is the first trend for 2026 and beyond, AI-infused talent and skills marketplaces. Number two is leadership for uncertainty. That's right, uncertainty. This topic of uncertainty has come up so much in the last year with organizations I work with, way more than it ever has in the past. The pace of change is faster than it's ever been before. It's not slowing down. And we're in an era of ambiguity, disruption, continuous reinvention. Leaders need a new skill set to navigate this, right? And so many people are saying like, okay, we need our leaders to be able to lead through ambiguity, through uncertainty. It's not just taking orders and knowing this is where things are going. Leaders have to develop adaptability, emotional intelligence, resilience, transparency, vulnerability, and comfort with the unknown. And I've been asked to create workshops in the past year on leading through change and leading through uncertainty. And I've also created workshops for the wider population on embracing uncertainty and owning your career through uncertainty, because there's so much uncertainty in the world. Case Thomas, I've quoted a few times from Seagate. He said, leaders need vulnerability, adaptability, and real transparency to guide people through uncertainty. The human side is the differentiator. And organizations that develop human-centered leadership now will probably outperform those clinging to the old models. We already talked about, that human side of leadership being so important. Okay, number three trend for the future, measurement-focused, results-driven L&D. We talked about this, the importance of connecting to the business, and this trend is accelerating. I think the business is demanding more connection to the strategy, to the key objectives, to the key performance indicators, the numbers, and there's more expectations to demonstrate ROI with fewer, quote, check the box type programs. So we need to be paying attention to this. Jay Ramji said, expect even more scrutiny on results. Learning teams will need to speak the language of the business and prove impact every step of the way. The future requires L&D to be as analytical as it is creative. So this is really, really important. Number four, inclusive human-centric learning. So I don't know if we're still allowed to talk about inclusion. I still love to talk about it. I still think it's really, really important. I know certain organizations, that term is banned because of everything going on with the current administration in the United States and, the way things have been going. But it is still really important. Inclusion and belonging are becoming embedded across onboarding, leadership development, talent reviews, performance management, team culture, hybrid work models. There's a lot of organizations still building this in, maybe just calling it different things. It's not really an add-on anymore. It is definitely part of the whole system. Again, going back to human skills being really, really important and making people feel included, like they belong, connected to the purpose, connected to the mission, understanding the strategic objectives, and really motivated to move forward and help the business accomplish its goals. Okay, number five, career ownership and mobility. We talked about this earlier as well. I have still been seeing organizations saying we want our people to own their careers. We want more talent, career mobility. Besides just, telling people they need to own their careers, organizations are investing in talent marketplaces, platforms to help people figure out where they're going, leveraging AI to make recommendations, to personalize learning, growth paths, etc. Career agility is going to be really a core skill here. So we're going to see more internal marketplaces, more cross-functional gigs, more stretch assignments, more transparent career pathways, more skills-based promotions, and more, I would say, skill-based or short-term assignments versus long-term roles. That's where I see things going. Number 6, agile L&D teams and ecosystems. L&D teams will continue to get leaner, get scrappier, curate more, build less, partner more, align tightly to the business. And this requires agility, creativity, and a strong strategic mindset. I've actually been asked to speak in an organization for their L&D leadership offsite in Q1 of next year because they are working on this exact same thing, not just the direction of the L&D team, but how they can get scrappier, more agile, how they can continue to provide value to the organization, how they can build their brand as an L&D team to really be valuable in this multinational organization. I'm really excited to be running that session for them in Q1. As Danielle Clark put it, head of talent at eBay, she said, being a strategic business partner isn't optional anymore. If you're not driving measurable outcomes, you'll get left behind. So we've already beat this drum quite a bit. The future L&D team will operate more like a performance consultancy than a content factory. I think we all know this. And then finally, trend number 7, onboarding and employee experience as power levers. Onboarding, connection, and employee experience are becoming strategic differentiators. We heard about onboarding a lot over the years because it's just an important part, an essential part of what organizations, especially big organizations, do throughout their entire employee experience. And actually, one thing that might be missing from these trends, from these insights, from the future trends, is this concept of employee experience, because recruiting, onboarding, all of this fits into the overall idea of creating a really great employee experience. And we have a couple good episodes coming up on that that will be all about, in fact, actually, if you just look last week, I had Andrew Wilhelms on from Databricks. He talked about the research he's done and the idea of creating a really great employee experience, as well as talent management versus talent development. So if you didn't listen to that, go check that out. One more quote I'll pull from my friend and client, Molly Hill, who runs talent at Toast. She's also worked at Starbucks, Microsoft, Disney, Airbnb. A really great episode if you didn't listen to that yet, just a few episodes back. She said the future of L&D is agile, inclusive, and obsessed with the employee experience, onboarding, connection, development moments all across the life cycle. So employee experience is no longer HR's job. It is a strategic business priority. All right, those are the insights and the trends that I pulled from the last couple years of our podcast as we sit here at episode 600. They're the emerging realities that will shape probably the next 5 to 10 years, but nobody really knows where things are going. In 10 years, robots might be running everything, but for now, we're still relying on people who want development, who want growth, and the organizations that embrace these trends, who invest in learning, who develop human-centered leaders, who empower career ownership, who leverage AI intelligently. Those are the companies that will thrive in the new world of work. Okay, that's it for today. Hosting this podcast for 600 episodes has really impacted, if not completely changed my life. It's opened doors, expanded my thinking, connected me with amazing people doing transformational work. I've found clients, I've made friends, I have hosted a conference 3 times. I've run a membership community for talent development professionals the last 5 years called the Talent Development Think Tank, and hosted monthly and weekly calls for talent leaders throughout the last 5 years to connect people with trends and ideas and share and help each other. And the big lesson for me through all of this is that people want to grow, people want to connect and help others, people want to contribute. And in fact, something I've talked about in owning your career is that the 2 biggest drivers of fulfillment are growth and contribution. People want to feel like they're growing. They want to feel like their work matters. And I know you want that too. But we need the right environment, the right leaders, the right opportunities to do so. And this show has just made me more committed to helping organizations create the cultures and systems where people can thrive. I love speaking in organizations to inspire people to own their careers, to set themselves up for future success, to build their personal brands, to shift their mindset, to adopt AI more, as well as for leaders to become better coaches. I've developed a lot of skills since I started this podcast and started learning from so many of the amazing people that have come on this show. I've learned a ton about talent development, including a lot of things that I've never been involved with, like talent reviews and performance management and onboarding programs, things like that. And it's just been so helpful for me, and I hope it's been helpful for you. Now, I've been reflecting on the future of this podcast, the Talent Development Hot Seat, and I'm honestly not sure where we're going from here. It's been 7 years and 600 episodes, and I know we're due for some changes. It might be a radical change. It might be small changes. I'm not sure. I will be doing reflecting at the end of the year 2025, because this does take a lot of time. It takes energy, financial investment, paying the contractors who help me make this a reality. And I want to ensure it aligns with where I'm going in my business, as well as the impact I want to create for all of you. So if you have ideas, if you have feedback, suggestions, please send them my way. You can send me a message on LinkedIn. You can send me an email to andy@andystorch.com. You can visit our website. If you go to talentdevelopmenthotseat.com, I'm also going to try, if I succeed, before I release this episode, to create a takeaway document with all of the insights and trends that I mentioned, so that you can go grab that and study it, since I know many of you are, you're driving your car, you're at the gym, you're walking your dog, you're doing other things, doing laundry, etc., and you didn't get a chance to write all these things down. So we'll have a downloadable summary guide with all 8 insights from our podcast, the quotes and practical recommendations the organization can use right away. And we'll put that up on our website if you go to talentdevelopmenthotseat.com. You can also grab a link in the show notes for this episode. And last thing, if your organization is preparing for the future of work, if you want your people to build the skills, the mindset, and the ownership to thrive in a fast-changing world, I'd love to come speak at your next company meeting, offsite, leadership event, whether virtual or in person. I promise you that I bring a ton of energy, experience, and enthusiasm to every engagement that I am at. You can talk to any of my current and past former clients. You can find out more about what I do on my website, andystorch.com, which is a little bit outdated at this point, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn or my email, andy@andystorch.com, and I'd be happy to talk with you about what that could look like, the value I could bring. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for sharing the podcast with your colleagues and on LinkedIn. And thank you again to our sponsors and our guests for being part of this journey. Here's to learning, leading, and developing talent, not just for today, but for the future. I appreciate you, and I hope that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you will remain ambitious to achieving more for your career, for yourself, for others, while also grateful for the career you have and the life that you get to live. Take care.